poets, I guess, oftentimes feel like we write in a vacuum, and then we actually get a chance to see if our words actually meet the pavement. Places like this, where the things that we write about really matter, are life and death to other people. So it's nice to be heard and understood. So this second poem I'm going to share is called Food Sovereignty, and it was written as part of an exhibit that just traveled through New Mexico called Seeds, where they were talking about, yes, thank you. They were talking about, talking about food sovereignty, talking about corporations taking over the whole farming game, and the whole farming game is kind of what we've been doing for, I don't know, since the beginning of humanity. So I said, I'm going to write a poem about that. And here's the poem that I shared at the gallery over there on 4th Street when they were doing the exhibit there. She said, what if the scientists stuck to science and let the farmers stick to farming? It's not rocket science. Global agriculture has changed more in our lifetime than the previous 10,000 years. Went from if it ain't broke, don't fix it, to if it works, whip it into working harder. When the sun doesn't rise fast enough for us, will we tinker with that? Will we surrender our Eden to the machine, look God in the eye, point to the third day and say, not good enough? Will we piss in the same pond we've evolved from? Will we turn our back on the mud in our veins? It's not rocket science. The chemists are covering the spread, bruising silos with fruit sky high. You think the pesticides are expensive? Imagine the plane. Got to push a hell of a lot more acres to cover the gas bill that gets that thing in the sky. It's not rocket science. Even the fairy tales proselytized. Jack in the Beanstalk was so obviously corporate that they didn't try to hide it. In the beginning of the story, he put 3 seeds in his pocket, and by the end, he turns a profit. It's surprisingly not surprising that there's no problem with how he got it, and a country founded on deception and robbery, and there's no way a beanstalk gets that big without GMO coursing through its body. That's like watching Major League Baseball pretending there's no difference between 1999 and 2005 Jason Giambi. And the script gets flipped to mess with our conscience. Of course Jack is hungry and poor, so he's just like us. Stole the tall man's gold and tricked his wife into liking him. Made Jack the bad guy, even though the beans were free and the stalk was on his property. But Jack still wins a happy ever after, though we all know fairy tales aren't reality. In the end, the corporation is still giant, and Jack can't have no beanstalk without him. It ain't rocket science. They say money doesn't grow on trees, but there are plenty of companies pumping it into the ground. Food chain will get a whole new meaning as soon as they figure that out. Chemicals invented for world wars have no business in our bodies. Fertilizing killing fields with BS will only yield a barren garden. I suppose it makes perfect sense if the idea is to wage war on our biology, monocrop all biodiversity till every seed is eugenically perfect, and leave the farming to the Nazis. It's not rocket science. Putting dope in the soil makes the land an attic. Now Mother Earth can't function without it, while just a few years ago she used to make miracles out of scratch for our parents. Years ago, our country abolished the ability of rich people to own farmers, but they didn't want to share crops, so they pulled all the stops, traded slave for patent holding, full well knowing that they will always own farmers as long as they can own their seeds. It's not rocket science. We cannot eat coffee, super insects, or super weeds. Our crops have become a courtroom, and the lawyers are woefully overdressed for this kind of work. It's not rocket science. If your coat is a dirtless shade of white, you are not allowed in this field. Here, brown is holy. Here, life is not an experiment. It's a reality. Here is not simply playing God. It's tampering with blessings. Here is not 20,000 feet. Here is ground, 0. Here is both feet, both knees, both hands, both lips. Kiss. It's not rocket science. Okay. More